Welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal channel. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. Tomiyasu has left Arsenal by mutual contract termination. The player is no longer an Arsenal player as per time of recording. This is a story that has come out of nowhere but has been broken by the BBC's Sami Makpo, and he confirms that Arsenal and the player's agent have been in talks for quite some time now, but it has been under the radar. It is done. It is dusted. Tomiyasu will leave Arsenal, and Arsenal are now going to increase their pressure on signing Christian Mosquera because they have a reason to bring in a new centre-back. There is also departures to Kivio and departures to Alexander Zinchenko that could happen at Arsenal this summer. Now, according to Jacob Benz, Arsenal are now ready to send in a bid for Eberechi Eze. A bid is imminent after Arsenal have understood the structure of the deal, and they have also understood the requirements of the deal. And Arsenal are saying that they might actually go in with a very different structure. We're going to be talking about the Eberechi Eze deal and how difficult the structure of the bid is and how difficult the structure of the release clause is. We're going to be discussing all that and more in this video. We'll be talking about Christian Mosquera, and we shall also be talking about Arsenal's new appointment in Gabriel Hens, one of the defenders of that really built a reputation during his time, is joining Arsenal after Carlos Cuesta joined Parma as head coach. Mikel Arteta finally has a new member of the squad to replace Carlos Cuesta and Gabriel Hens. After Arsenal having all this very good work in defensive areas, we have brought in another defensive coach to add to the experience, and I love it. And I can't wait for him to start at Arsenal. But let's start off with that big story. Right from Jacob Benz, confirming there that Arsenal are now expected to send in a bid for Eberechi Eze as they understand all the conditions and all the relevant structures of the bid and release clause of the player. Now, Jacob Benz says that Eberechi Eze is keen on a move to Arsenal. There is a release clause which is 68 million. If Arsenal make an approach, and I think there is a realistic chance they do, the likelihood is that they go a little bit lower than the offer, or offer a very different kind of structure to what is being stipulated in the release clause contract of the player. Now, he says that the release clause is payable in installments. That much is, we know, and that's a very, very good incentive for Arsenal. And he says that, but it's relatively difficult because some of the money goes to the player, some of the money goes to Crystal Palace, and some of the money goes to his former club. The interest became concrete about 10 days ago. Arsenal are serious about Eze. I'm expecting a bid to be below the release clause, and I'm expecting that bid to be within the next coming 2 weeks. In that meeting, at the end of the week, that was between Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, and Eze's representatives, there were senior football people from Arsenal pitching to the Eze camp. This was not just we like you, we might go for you. This was a discussion about numbers. So listen, I've told you before that this Eberechi Eze stuff to Arsenal is 100% happening. I have not had, this intuition about a player since, a long time ago. I think the last time I had an intuition about a player signing for Arsenal, I think it was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, right? There is this intuition you always have when you know a player will sign even if the deal is not yet done. And I think with Eberechi Eze, a deal is 100% happening. The player is 100% sold onto Arsenal. That is the first thing. Eze is 100% sold onto Arsenal. And this is why Arsenal will want to progress on this deal because, all other deals, if you look at all the other deals, they're very, very complicated. Even the Eze deal itself, we're going to talk about that release clause, but it is complicated. But it is not as complicated as the Morgan Rogers deal, because with Morgan Rogers, the price is set in the sky. It is 90 million, 80 million, and that is pounds, right? So that is close to 99 million euros. So Arsenal have to negotiate with Villa to bring that price down, then do some work on player side. That is going to take a lot of time, and we know we don't have a lot of time. And when you think about the Xavi Simons deal, that is even more complicated than the Eze deal, because for Xavi Simons, he signed for Leipzig for, I think, a deal that was worth 80 million euros. Now, if he signed in a deal worth 80 million euros, imagine this. Arsenal want to sign him. How much are you really going to offer? It should be the equivalent of 80 million euros. And again, I don't think Arsenal want to waste their time on those deals. So the Eberechi Eze deal provides Arsenal with with a unique kind of perspective to the transfer market. We can sign a player who is 100% willing to join Arsenal, and the price is not that much. Even if Arsenal wanted to sign him for 68 million, we could walk into the room, trigger the release clause, and get the deal done. Now, the problem, as expected, comes from here. Let's talk about the structure of the release clause, because Arsenal have been disturbed by structures of player deals a lot this summer. We are talking the likes of Shesko, we are talking the likes of Gyökeres as well. And here, Jacob Ben says that the release clause is payable in installments. That is to the advantage of Arsenal. You don't want to pay the whole release clause once. But it says it's relatively difficult. Relatively means that it's not too difficult. It's not very complicated. Because some of the money has to go to the player, and some of the money has to go to Crystal Palace, and some of the money has to go to his former club. Now, why this is a problem for Arsenal, for us, we want to offer Eze, we want to sign Eze for a lower fee. And where the problem comes there is that if you want to sign him for a lower fee, you have to destabilize the structure of the deal, or if you want a different kind of structure, right? Now, if let's say Arsenal paid 70 million for Eze, his former club could get like 10 million, Eze himself could get like 5 million, and then, I don't know if the maths is right, but Crystal Palace could get about 55 million, right? But if Arsenal were to pay 40 million for Eze, it significantly reduces the amount of money that Palace would get, the former club of Eze would get, and Eze himself would get, right? That is now where things are going to become complicated, because then Crystal Palace, no, they're not getting the whole package for themselves. They're not keeping the whole package for themselves. So they're gonna want Arsenal to pay as maximally as possible in order for them to maximize profits, the profit on the sale, right? That's why it's complicated. And then the structure also becomes very complicated because if you paid, let's say 55 million across 3 years, again, that money has to be split, between three parties, among three parties, across 3 years. And that is a lot of time, right? So maybe what Arsenal should do, in my opinion, why don't we, agree to pay a lower fee, maybe 60 million instead of 68, or 55 million instead of 68, and then, pay much of the money up front. I don't know how our numbers are standing at the moment. We have really, really a lot of work to do, and we've done a lot of work already in terms of player signings. We have already spent about 86 million, right? But the structure is going to be very key to this deal, and the amount of money is going to be very key to this deal. I remember I was reporting then on Manchester United in 2019, and the reason as why Bruno Fernandes's deal took a little bit of time to sort out was because a couple of third parties owned rights to the player. And therefore, Sporting was saying to Manchester United, you've got to pay as maximally, as handsomely as you can, because we want a very good portion of that money, but there are third parties that also have to take certain percentages, right? And this is what Palace are going through. If they were to keep 100% of the player figure, of the player's transfer fee, they can even agree to sell to you for 45 or for 50 million. But because they are only taking a percentage of that, and we don't know what percentage Palace have, but we assume that it's up to maybe 70% or 75%. But they know that if you paid 100 million, they're only taking 75. If you're paying 50 million, they're only taking about 25 to 27.5 of that money. So they want as big as a fee as possible to let Eberechi Eze go. But this is a deal for me. That will happen. Don't panic, Arsenal fans. Eze 100% sold on this Arsenal move, and it will happen. Okay, let's talk about one of the, I would say, sad stories of the week, because we have heard that Diogo Jota story that is still haunting me. And then we get this. Sammy Makbo from the BBC has just confirmed that Takehiro Tomiyasu, Arsenal defender Takehiro Tomiyasu, has left the club after reaching settlement to terminate his contract earlier last month. Deal expired in 2026 with option for further 12 months. Tomiyasu expected back from knee surgery in 4 to 4 months. He has left Arsenal. And this is not something new, actually. It has been under the radar. But according to Hands of Arsenal, Arsenal have been in discussions with Takehiro Tomiyasu's camp to mutually part ways pending an agreement, which is the current direction of the travel. Clubs from Saudi Arabia made contact with the players' agency yesterday. So what this tells you is that this is not a new story. This is something that Arsenal have considered. And I was asking myself, guys, actually, as I was writing my notes, I wrote down and I said, now the Dean Huijsen links to Arsenal make a lot of sense. Because I was looking at this team, like, to be honest with you, and I was saying, why are Arsenal adding a 50 million centre-back to the ranks? Because these are the centre-back options we have before the departure of Tomiyasu, right? You have Tommy, you have the big Gabi, you have Saliba, you have Calafiori, you have Kivio. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centre-back options without me thinking about Timber, who can play there, without thinking about White, who can play there as well. Arsenal had a satisfying 5 centre-back options, right? With 2 more players that can play at centre-back in White and Timber. So when Arsenal were linked with Dean Huijsen earlier on, it didn't make sense for me. I was like, okay, maybe Arsenal want to strengthen massively, but we had done brilliantly well in the transfer market regarding, not in the transfer market, but in the season regarding our defensive numbers. Arsenal were not conceding a lot of chances, despite the fact that we were hit by, an injury plague, which threw the team into an injury crisis, right? But what, in fact, was happening is Arsenal was sure, and and this is why I'm telling you, don't panic. Please don't panic. Arsenal know what they're doing. They might not be telling us everything, but they know what they're doing. This Tomiyasu story is not new. I think Arsenal knew that Tomiyasu would leave Arsenal prior to June. And they prepared for that, by trying to identify options that could come in and give you a bit of what Tomiyasu does. So let me give you an example. Dean Huijsen in the Club World Cup, a player that we really wanted, is playing on the left-sided, on the left side of the centre-back options at Real Madrid. At Bournemouth, he was playing on the right-hand side, right? He was playing on the right-hand side, and Ilya Zabani was playing on the left-hand side, right? So that tells that Arsenal were looking at Dean Huijsen as a new Tomiyasu, because what do we know about Tomiyasu? Left back, right back, left centre-back, right centre-back. So let's talk about the departure of Tommy for a second. Let's try to internalize it. It's painful for me. It's really, really painful. And it's not only me. I don't want to make this show about myself. But one Arsenal fan, one of my followers, big up to you if you're the one, has sent me a WhatsApp this morning. And he was asking me, Cossy, is this true that Tomiyasu has left Arsenal? Is this true? That is what is being reported by the BBC and Sami Makpo? Is it true? And that text had this sincere pain in it. It had this sincere, echo of concern in it. Not because Tomiyasu is the greatest defender that has ever graced the grass at the Emirates or at Arsenal history, but he's one of those players that were loved. And for me, I will always remember Tomiyasu as the player that revolutionized right back at Arsenal. Remember when we signed him? I think we signed him in the summer of 2021. Yeah? In the summer of 2021. I still remember. It was in the summer of 2021. And during that time, we had a season where Hector Bellerin was failing to have proper throw-ins. Like, that is how bad it was. Hector Bellerin had fallen off a massive cliff, and Arsenal desperately needed, a right back. But prior to Hector Bellerin, we had tried a couple of things. I think, after the departure of Bakali Sanya, Arsenal had struggled to find a proper right back that could give us the quality Sanya had given us, because Sanya had given us this sense of security and consistency and availability and calm when it came to our right back. So after Sanya went to Manchester City, Arsenal tried a couple of options. We signed Matteo Debuchy at Newcastle. Didn't work out. Then Hector Bellerin kind of cropped out of the Arsenal academy and he broke onto the scene, and he was a very good player, by the way. He was a very, very good talent. But then he fell off a cliff as well. And when Tomiyasu signed for Arsenal, it was like a breath of fresh air into this Arsenal system. And he was a breath of fresh air. So good luck to you, Tommy. Love you, but I think Arsenal have just been ruthless this summer. And I'm not going to blame anyone. If you want to win, you've got to be ruthless. Last season taught Mikel Arteta that you're either, you're either fucking around or you're not messing around. And last season we messed around. Calafiori, Sterling, bad signings, very poor signings, pointless signings. And what happened eventually is Arsenal were fucked around last season with that season. It was a very bad season. So what Mikel realized is, I've got not to mess about. And that's why Arsenal are willing to splash over 300 million this summer. Because we have understood the true value of not messing around in the transfer window. So, Tommy, I love you, but just like we have to ask, if you ask this question, what would Bayern do? What would any top club do with a player who's injury prone? You let them go. Now, Arsenal expected to move on to the Mosquera deal. And now that, for me, justifies Arsenal signing Christian Mosquera for 20 to 25 million euros. Because anyone will be asking the question, why are Arsenal signing Christian Mosquera for 25 million euros when we want a centre forward and we want to strengthen our attack? But with Tommy leaving and potentially Zinchenko and Kivio leaving as well, there is now a justification that Arsenal can spend upwards of 20 million euros on Christian Mosquera, and no one, not me, not you, not anyone, is actually going to complain. Now, Arsenal have appointed Gabriel Hens as one of the members of the coaching staff for Mikel Arteta at Arsenal next season. He's a very, very well acclaimed defender. We'll talk about that in a minute. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Ciao.